What's going on, everyone? So I have super exciting news for those of you that weren't necessarily in the loop yesterday. We had an art design live stream in which they showcased a few of the new art drops for Shadows of the Galaxy. Now, we've already seen a few of these in like Moff Gideon, the Razor Crest, Grogu, and things like that. No card titles, no card mechanics or anything like that yet with this new art drop, but it gives us an inkling to both what they could potentially expand upon in universe, as well, the cards themselves expand upon in the meta of Star Wars Unlimited currently. Someone went ahead and pulled them all together on this Reddit post. If you want to check them out, I'll leave them in the links down below, or a link in the description down below for this Reddit post. You can check out all 15 images. And I want to just give my thoughts and share my excitement, because for those of you that have never watched any videos from me before, or maybe this is the first channel you've seen me on, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. My son is named Revan, and one of the biggest things that I was hoping for with Star Wars Unlimited was to see some sort of Old Republic theme set. Well, obviously focused around Revan, Bastila, and his journey. I think that would be an absolute banger, and I'm here for it. And it, with this card or the art drops, makes me more hopeful for the future in terms of what they're actually willing to dive into in terms of lore, as well as, you know, cards themselves. So starting us off though, we have Boba Fett as the first little art drop, and this is obviously a more older Boba Fett after the fall of the Empire. This is Daimyo Boba Fett, or Book of Boba Fett for those of you that watch these series. This is a much older one, taking the place of Jabba essentially. There might be little minor spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen any of the recent Star Wars shows. I mean, of course, it's been like a couple years at this point, but if you haven't seen any of them, just be aware there might be minor spoilers here. But this one has both implications for, of course, what the set's really going to be focused around. We've seen some things with like Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian, and that means that they're kind of expanding into that specific, you know, series. But also, Book of Boba Fett kind of follows directly after and entwines with Mandalorian, so seeing a lot of characters from that, and in this case, a more advanced Boba Fett, and of course, a advancement to the Boba Fett meta that we are currently in. Now, I know some people are very aware that there are ways to beat Boba. There are definitely ways to beat Boba, but there is a clear favorite towards what typically performs as the most solid deck in the format, and that is Boba Green. There are really, really solid options, right? Sabine Green, Leia Red, Iden Blue, or Iden Red, Iden Green. I've seen variations of, all of which are strong. But of course, getting more Boba Fett's could lean us towards not only a bounty hunter themed leader and a bounty hunter themed deck, which we'll get to in just a moment, but also just a more advanced Boba deck using Boba Fett, as assuming he has the same name, he's going to synergize with things like Fett's Fire Spray, which is going to be pretty sweet. Second card here is a new Jabba, and I think that with Jabba and the next 2, 3, 4-ish cards, as we talk about them, all of these kind of fall into the same sort of theme, which is like bounty hunters, the syndicate, scoundrels, things like that. This is a droid. Here's a Gand, a little scoundrel smuggler bounty hunter. I'm not quite sure what it is. If anyone knows that this is like a specific character that I'm not familiar with, let me know in the comment section down below. I didn't recognize these off face value, but with Jabba the Hutt, we don't know if this is like a leader. This looks to me, based on what we're seeing here, potentially like episode 6 Jabba, potentially, maybe even past that. But again, Jabba's kind of hard to place, as he looks very similar through all of them. Maybe there's a detail that I'm missing here, but this could potentially signify a more bounty hunter theme, or we could go doubling down on the current Jabba, which focuses on events, specifically tricks, and we could have some sort of event themed deck. I was thinking about this with the Mandalorian, when we have the upgrade themed deck where we're exhausting units by playing upgrades. I could very much see a leader that like pings units, like deal 1 damage to a unit whenever you play an event. That could really power up event style decks, something like a Bosk type synergy, but with the leader itself. And I could see Jabba kind of leading that fray. And again, I think all 3 of these kind of fit that play style or kind of art style and idea. As for this one, this is the Pike Syndicate. I'm not quite sure which one. This one, to me, based on what I'm seeing here with this specific Pike, I forgot the name of it, but This is very, very similar to the Clone Wars Pikes and what we've seen from anything associated with that Clone Wars series. Something that, Anakin and Obi-Wan deal with, and then eventually Ahsoka deal with, and then eventually later on, other characters deal with. This is potentially just a card, or we could see like a syndicate theme, right? We have syndicate lackeys, and that was like a little indication of potentially expanding upon bounty hunters, and we could see like a syndicate tag with a syndicate leader, and that whole kind of, I guess you say, faction explored, especially if we have him being our leader, or maybe, just a really solid unit. Then we have young Han and young Chewie, or, Vandor Chewie, which was just before, I think, this point in the story. This is basically based off of the Solo movie, from what I understand, of course, the lore of Han himself. And we've gotten a few characters associated with that. I want to talk about that one a little bit more. But young Han, young Chewie, I think this could be really, really exciting. Potentially giving us another Han. I don't know if it really fits in the Han deck unless it fits in with those mechanics. Hard to say. But of course, he's a smuggler. We could potentially see specific Han/Chewie synergies. And more exciting for me, this means that we could potentially see a Darth Maul in this set if they're going to go solo. For those of you that haven't watched the movie, again, I said minor spoilers, maybe. Minor spoilers. For those of you that haven't watched any Star Wars content, and it's been like years, but there might be some more spoilers. Obviously, he lived during the Clone Wars, and then we saw him at the end of Solo. And if we're getting specific characters from this movie, which we have one other character or two other characters to talk about as well, we could also see Tobias, and we could see some version of Darth Maul, which would be absolutely sick. I would love a Darth Maul card. And as you all saw, we have Tech, and we also have Echo, which we'll talk about later on. Basically, the Bad Batch is coming to this set as well. This was a little bit more surprising to me, because when they said Shadows of the Galaxy and basically anything to do with the Underworld and like characters that go on their own journeys, I wouldn't have expected to have the Bad Batch in there. To me, they're more of like just that new Republic style faction and fighting against the Empire, although they do fit a little bit differently. For those of you that have seen the Bad Batch series, they are, well, obviously post Republic, and that means that they don't really fit that theme. They are kind of part of the Underworld. They are kind of running Underworld jobs, and so it does make a decent amount of sense, but it just surprised me a little bit to see the Bad Batch in here. And of course, my favorite version of the Bad Batch is the Clone Wars version, especially if you've seen the last season of Clone Wars. That was an extremely exciting few episodes seeing Echo return. And I would love to see variations on the Bad Batch going forward. Next up, we have the Tuskens, a little Tusken tribe. This could be, a whole faction. Again, similar to the Syndicate, you could literally just develop an entire leader and a faction around the Tuskens. And we could start seeing, especially for like Twin Suns, or even like just like fun decks for you all to play against your friends, we could see like tribal themes, right? Like Tusken theme, Syndicate theme, Jedi theme, and we even have like Rebel and Imperial theme. So, we could see an expansion upon this. This one I'm actually not familiar with. For those of you that might be familiar with, or maybe I'm missing something, or maybe it's not even anything specific, let me know. Looks like some sort of scoundrel, of course, flamethrower here. On another note, we have Kira from the Solo movie. Again, this kind of reinforces that idea that we might see some sort of Darth Maul, or maybe some sort of scoundrel squad. Again, these cards could just be one-ofs in terms of like on their own, things like Mace Windu that we got, or General Krell that we got from the current set Spark of Rebellion. But maybe there's going to be a little bit more synergy to them, or maybe specific synergy with young Han, young Chewie, and maybe another card that we'll see a little bit later. This one is the card that honestly makes me the most excited about the future of Star Wars. So we've already talked about how, yes, they're using content from like the different movies, various different characters. They're not afraid of different factions. They're using like very current stuff that people are excited about. And they're even diving into characters that I wouldn't have expected. For example, the Pike Syndicate, the Pike leader, and even young Han and the Bad Batch. Like as a second set, I would not have expected all this new content. We're talking about 15 different cards here, right? Card arts. But this one in particular, this, for those of you who don't know, is Dr. Aphra. And this character really only shows up in, comics, legend stories, and things like that. She is essentially an archaeologist that had to serve Darth Vader and eventually, fakes her own death. And there's a whole story behind her. But essentially, the reason why I'm excited about this character is, for one, we're going to see potentially her assassin droid companions 000 and BT1. But more importantly, they're not afraid of diving into legends, and they're not afraid of diving into the comic books and lore and legend stories. And this is what makes me more hopeful and excited about something like Revan coming to the game. For those of you that are more excited about, seeing some of your favorite stories and your Star Wars lore come to life in this game, as I am, then this is going to be one of the more exciting cards for you as well. I know not everyone cares about this, and maybe some of you are just playing because the game is good, and that's totally fair, but I'm playing because the game is good, and I love Star Wars, so this is a really exciting card for me. The 13th one here, yet another, some sort of bounty hunter scoundrel type thing. Again, I'm not 100% familiar with this guy's look. Again, some of these might be from the legends and the comic books as well, and if you all know of these stories, let me know, because I've not seen all of them. There's a particular focus that I like, and I have not seen all of them, but perhaps one is from one of these. Number 14 here is Echo, and this one's a pretty sweet one of my favorite arts of the entire set. I just think the way they kind of portrayed Echo, obviously in a very stylistic manner, really shows like the pain he's went through. I just think this one's a sweet one, but again, kind of reinforcing the Bad Batch. We're probably going to see Wrecker, we're going to see Hunter, may even see, although this one's a little bit on the weaker side to potentially see, is Crosshair, because Crosshair, kind of, season 3 spoilers, season 2, late season 2 spoilers, and season 1 spoilers, kind of follow the Empire, could potentially have an Imperial tag, which could be interesting, but also could just have like a Bad Batch tag, as well, kind of ends up there. And lastly, we have Enfys Nest, again from that Solo movie. Scoundrel, potentially, synergizing with other scoundrels. I'm not 100% sure where she would fit in, as she's kind of her own deal in that movie, but again, we might see some sort of scoundrel synergies, or we could just see her be placed in a deck because she's got upgrades associated with it, or maybe she has like her vibro axe as an upgrade, and you place it on Enfys Nest, like Enfys Nest's vibro axe, and then boom, suddenly she's like a yellow character because it kind of fits in cunning for me, or maybe like yellow red, or like red, something like that. Boom, fitting it into Mandalorian, and bam, got some synergies there. Not quite sure, not going to be applied to any of these cards, but this one's definitely the one that I'm probably the most curious about in terms of tags and where she would fit in, and maybe they're going to go a different direction where they're just going to try to encompass all the scoundrels. But that is all of the 15 card arts that we saw in the art design live stream. There were a few others that we saw in the previous live stream when we talked about Moff Gideon, we talked about Mandalorian, things like Armorer was kind of teased, as well as a few other ones that I'm pretty excited about. So what I'm seeing from this second set not only has surpassed my expectations, but like blown them out of the water. I am a little disappointed that we're not going to see it till July 12th, just because I'm super excited about it. But when it does come, I'm sure, 100% sure, that I am going to be absolutely loving not only the cards themselves and the art, but also the theory crafting and deck building that comes along with it. I cannot wait, as well, right now the card pool is very limited, and so that kind of limits the styles of decks that you can play. There's a little bit of uniqueness and fun to it, but I cannot wait until we get another 252 cards or whatever it's going to be in Shadows of the Galaxy. And this has made me just even more excited. Once they start releasing the cards themselves, like the mechanics and the titles and such, you can start playing it on like TTS, which is pretty sweet. I know that you could potentially even play like Mandalorian and Grogu and Razor Crest on TTS right now, which is pretty sweet. So well, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Is there any card here that's particularly exciting for you? Once again, Dr. Aphra is definitely the one that I am looking forward to the most. Maybe not even as a card, but like as the implication of we're going to be diving into things that you may have never even heard of. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of you potentially watching this video that have never heard of Dr. Aphra, and that's what's so amazing about it for people like me. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next video.